In September 1920, a horse-drawn wagon stopped outside the New York Stock Exchange. Minutes later, it exploded, killing dozens and injuring hundreds. Despite an investigation that spanned years, all trails went cold, and no one was ever arrested. Today, we examine the unsolved case of the 1920 Wall Street bombing. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the unknown. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me, hearing this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
I don't like these people already. They're out here harming horses.
You know what? I'm glad you clocked that. Victim number one, the horse.
The horse, man.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
This is insidious.
Can't stand for that.
No.
Anything to do with animal cruelty, abuse, any of that stuff, can't stand for. Terrible people. Or are they trying to send a message? Like, I'm interested to see like how much damage was done and kind of the overflow, the extent of that damage when it came to like, you know, the stocks and all that kind of stuff. I'm not quite sure. I think it's like, I don't know. It could have been someone that had money that was like then lost it all.
Ooh.
That type of situation.
Yeah.
Or someone that's just not a big fan of that type of money. I don't know. The fact they got away with it. I mean, again, I say it all the time. You do the one and done. It's kind of hard. Well, back then too. Nowadays, it's like they're going to ping you 5 different ways from the hundreds of phones that you just passed by.
Yeah.
But
we clocked you with a phone call you made and a post to Instagram, and then, you know, some sort of sinister tweet you had. Just something like that.
Yeah. And then we're like, we knew exactly who you were because you had this little boo-boo on your little back pouch just hanging on.
And we know that's a 3rd generation Labubu. We know how you got it and when.
Exactly. We tracked it down right into your account.
Yeah. Now, this case is really, really interesting because despite the fact that this is, you know, as an American, you know, that's what we're raised in, all of that. And so a lot of our history is through that lens. So I am kind of blown away that I had never heard about this. Fredo, you had never heard about this case either, right?
No, not at all.
It has been, I mean, it's unsolved, which is obviously kind of worrying, but there's so many photographs of this case. It was pretty prolific. Hundreds of people, like I mentioned, were injured, and I believe the death toll was in total 38. We'll talk about all those details. We'll give you the details of what happened that afternoon, the investigation and aftermath, and then honestly, the relatively slim list of suspects, because whoever it was, like you said, kind of just slipped into the night or the afternoon. It was broad daylight, but we'll talk about all of that. And again, I'm just blown away that despite all of that, I've really never heard about this case until and so I'm actually shocked that it took us this long to cover it, because one of the suspects, we know now a lot more interesting details about them, but the way their story begins is just like any other true crime from the early to mid 1900s.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wonder if they have a rap sheet or anything like that whatsoever.
A little bit, but not in a criminal way. It's we'll get into it, but
not a jaywalking or littering,
this is the habitual jaywalker.
Yeah,
He clocked
loves
him.
jaywalking. Great citizen. Just don't get him onto the streets.
Right. Just don't take him to a crosswalk. He hates those. Listen, this is a wild case. We're going to take you through all the nooks and crannies. But as we dive in, you know, this week at redwebpod.com, we have a lot going on. We have our live recording of another episode of Break Room this Wednesday, the 23rd at 6 p.m. Central Time. So Task Force, mark your calendars. Come hang out with us. Be part of the conversation. That gets uploaded eventually the next month on our Patreon. And we also have our monthly gameplay series this Friday. It's called Fieldwork. It is on Friday the 25th. So come check that out as well. But also, it's July. We're in the midst of celebrating our 5-year anniversary. God. And as such, it's crazy. 5 years, Fredo.
5
Terrifying
years,
you,
man.
Twisting your brain.
Yep. I'm a little more in tune with the darker side of the world with all these mysteries, the murders and aliens. The cryptid world was that. I mean, that one's cool. All right, I like the, you know what I mean? Who doesn't like a cryptid?
I really blew your socks off when Squonk came to the table, but yeah.
Which, by the way, when I side tangent, went to an event last weekend. My friend was introducing that we did Red Web, et cetera, et cetera. And then I said that we covered cryptids. And the person sitting across from me, she was like, "Oh my God, do you know who the squonk is?" I was like, "Boy, let me tell you, the task force loves those little things."
They love those little things, and no one's got darker history with squonk than Fredo.
Exactly. She was blown away that I knew what a squonk was. So there you go, task force.
I love that. Listen, we've twisted you slowly. Over 5 years, I feel like we're slowly getting it into the DNA of Fredo. And honestly, maybe you're less scared for it. You're well armored. You have a much more interesting lens to look at these things. And maybe you know, none of this gets under your skin anymore. You know the twists and turns.
It leads to a false sense of safety. You know what I mean? And then that's where you get got because you're not
right. And that's when I can take you back ghost hunting.
Yeah, I mean, every October, I hold my breath.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, like I said, because it is our 5th year anniversary and it is July, it is our year 5 founders merch time right now for this month only. You have just under 2 weeks left, so come support us at store.redwebpod.com. We did a stream last week, but still, all proceeds, all profits from the merch this month will go to support our 5-year anniversary stream stretch goals, which is making pilots, trying new things with Red Web to get like an initial show off the ground to see how it's going to work and if it's something that's going to click with you guys, if something that we want to make. And one of those is, in fact, taking this man on another ghost hunt. And so, again, we're recording this in the future. I don't know where we're at in the stretch goals, especially now on the other side of the stream. So stay tuned with us on social media at Red Web Pod or on TikTok, The Red Web. And yeah, help us make it happen.
That's a shame. We hit every stretch goal except for that one.
Dang,
it's
yeah.
Unfortunate.
It's so unfortunate we skipped that one somehow.
Oh, would you look at that? Everything's out of stock, people. It's crazy. Everything just now in this moment, whenever you're listening to it, just went out of stock. It's just, you can't get any more. I'm sorry.
It's impossible.
There's no, don't go, son. You don't, I don't got to go anywhere this year. Please no.
Well, listen, if the founders merch is out of stock, the sippy cup cannot go out of stock. It's impossible. I have engineered it thus, and so come support. There's no way to not get this man to a ghost tent. We're going to have to make it happen, Task Force. It's a battle of wills. But lots going on. Thank you guys so much for your ongoing support. It's 5 years. I can't say thank you enough. I'm so grateful. I know I speak for the team when I say that. But with that said, Fredo, I think it's time that I take you back 105 years.
Dang.
To September 16th, 1920. On this fateful afternoon, 30 people were killed instantly when a bomb exploded from a horse-drawn carriage around 12:01 p.m. Here, right out the gate, I have 3 photos I want to share with you. Task Force, if you're watching wherever we have video, which is YouTube, our Patreon at redwebpod.com, but also on Spotify. Now you can see these images as well. We'll post them on social as always. But Fredo, this is just 3 of the honestly many images that exist of the aftermath of this moment. What are you seeing?
Oh, first off, the image is so clear.
I know. So I'll be honest with you. I don't know if this is just because film photography is just
timeless,
timeless, but also it could be enhanced. I do know that I got it from the FBI, and so it could just be that it is the full resolution of this true image. A lot of images across the internet are a little bit more blurry, so it's possible that this has been enhanced just for the sake of transparency. I wanted to put that out there. The other 2 are as they have been scanned and uploaded in their full quality. No enhancement.
Yeah, I mean, it's like right on the sidewalk. It's like on the street, right up against the sidewalk, like dead center of the steps to this large building. The street is crowded. Like it's some kind of music festival. It's packed. And then I'm looking at the next photo, which is a side shot of the car. And then the car itself is just, it's.
So that's one of the cars just nearby.
Okay. Which makes more sense because there's no steps adjacent to it.
Right. So this is the horse-drawn carriage was the thing that carried the explosives. We'll talk about that. But
the first one.
This is an automobile, yeah.
I think I might see pieces of the horse.
Of the horse?
Isn't it in the on the ground right there?
Now, it does very much look pretty gruesome. There are a lot of photos of this scene, some really high resolution ones, and one of the photos I didn't include was actually a pile of the remains of the wagon, and a lot of those parts look very similar to what you see in the foreground of this. And so I'm wondering if what you're seeing is just shrapnel from the wagon, from things being destroyed and on fire, and water mixing in with that from putting these fires out. Otherwise, in black and white, it does look like it could be pretty gruesome, but I don't believe that it's the horse.
Yeah, and then the car nearby. So yeah, but it's a sizable explosion then, if it was hitting cars close by. And the third photo is a vehicle from behind. It's flipped over on its side. Was that the main vehicle?
So this is another automobile that would have been upturned, and you can see it in the first photograph from the opposite angle. It's their license plate 24246, something like that. So that was probably near enough that it was, tossed.
Wow. So they just, I mean, I get why they did it in broad daylight. You know, they wanted to make a huge statement or have a huge impact. I'm assuming there's a ton of people on the street.
And I mean, of course, you know, this is the aftermath. A lot of people heard about this. Immediately, police are on scene. And so it is extra crowded because of the scene of it all. But it was still very crowded, suffice to say, on that day. It was the lunch rush. This is a very high trafficked street, given that, you know, there's a lot of things happening with the stock exchange. So it wasn't as crowded as this, but it was still certainly quite crowded on any normal afternoon. So this wagon that exploded, it was parked in front of the USSA office opposite the JP Morgan building. So the USSA office was responsible for testing precious metals like gold and silver to determine if they were up to the standards of purity and quality. Of course, making sure people aren't mixing their lead in with their gold and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a much more tangible environment. We have digital stuff all over the place now. Money is very digital. So it makes sense that there's an office like that near a stock exchange. Now, no one really knows when the wagon arrived, and only a driver was seen getting out. But the best estimates say that the wagon was there for a few minutes, just a few minutes before the bomb detonated. Now, as we talked about, this was said to be one of the financial district's busiest corners. And again, it was lunch hour, and so there were a lot of people bustling in the streets. And because of this, in addition to the 30 instant casualties, there were unfortunately 8 other individuals who died from their injuries not too long after. And like I said, in total, approximately 300 people were injured in some way by this blast. And looking at various sources, about 140 some odd individuals were considered seriously injured. So that could be anything from concussions to getting thrown to the ground and having a contusion to minor bumps and scrapes for people further away. But 300 people is pretty alarming.
Did you use dynamite?
They did use dynamite.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, the bomb consisted of 100 pounds or 45 kilograms of dynamite. And along with that, now this is where it gets pretty insidious. Along with that, there were several hundred pounds of sash weights and metal slugs, like lead pieces of metal that were all linked to this dynamite and then set off with a timed detonator that would then shoot these weights out into the air.
Yeah, so you kind of rigged it so there'd be a lot of shrapnel. Okay, that makes sense why there was such a high count of like casualties, because then shrapnel is just going to travel. It's going to travel all the way across the street, down the street, like through walls, windows, all that kind of stuff. That's terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
This person was really trying to make a statement, and it's so terrifying. Like anybody could, I don't know. It feels like anybody could just do something like that. You know what I mean? Like take a vehicle or a sidearm on like a rooftop or something like that, and just my mind wandering to a bad place. But it just seems so like the world is can be a terrible place. People can be terrible. People can even be evil. I'm just glad it takes a certain kind. You got to get through a lot of layers of a person.
That this is not a common thing that people want to do.
It's not common that for someone to actually think about it, go through with it. Thank goodness.
Right. There's a lot of, thankfully, mental barriers and then societal barriers as well. I mean, we talk about it a lot. Really, unfortunately, it does seem that like the early to mid 1900s especially seemed like, at least looking back, we have tech now, we can ping cell phones, there's CCTV all over the place that kind of keeps an eye on things, and there's security and whatnot. But back then, it does feel like one could just kind of do any of these things and walk away from it, because there are so many cases where seemingly someone did.
Yep.
And you raise this question all the time. I think it's completely valid. Like, who's to say somebody doesn't become a serial murderer and then get away with it because they just decided to stop one day instead of keeping the act going until they are caught?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like, oh, we caught them after 30, 40 victims, etc. It's like, what if they stopped at 28?
Right,
You know what I mean?
It's a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do actually have images, 2 different images. One that shows those sash weights. If you've ever heard of those, sash weights are commonly used in sash windows. Old-timey windows that I used to have when I was like in one of my early houses here. It had those kind of weights, so when you picked up the window, it would counterbalance it, allow it to go up and down pretty smoothly with, balancing the window weight.
Oh, wow. That doesn't even seem like you would break. I guess the second photo is the pieces recovered.
I've seen various images of them. Some resources call them slugs. Some refer to them because of the first image. They're specifically in the shape and weight of a sash window weight and long lead rod with the hole at the top for the rope to hold on to. So
like
some of these, I imagine, blew apart. Some of these might have just been, they might have started as more shrapnel based, just like pieces of lead metal slugs, so I don't know.
They look sizable.
Yeah.
They don't look, they really weren't broken up that well. And something like this traveling at a high velocity is gonna kill someone or injure them greatly.
Totally. If memory serves, I didn't include this in my notes here, but I did look up the sash weights commonly used at this time. Again, it's lead metal, so it's very dense. These look pretty sizable. We don't have a hand or anything for kind of relative size, but I think on average, a lot of these tended to be 2 to 3 pounds. But in total, I've seen upwards of 500 pounds of these weights found at the scene. And so there is a volume of shrapnel here, to your point. Like, that's exactly the idea. And so whoever it was going to a crowded spot with shrapnel and a lot of dynamite, they're trying to inflict maximum damage. Let's just say it, right?
They definitely are.
Yeah.
And it's just not like the digital age. So instantly I think to myself, it was, hey, can we track the purchase? Can we track the vehicle, etc.?
There are elements of that here, I will say.
Really?
But we know it's a cold case, it's kind of spilling the beans. But I'll get into all of that. But as we kind of come to a closure on this initial scene, of course, police officers rushed in to render first aid. Nearby vehicles were used to transport victims to the hospital. I believe in one of these photos, you can even see that one of the cars says Volunteer Hospital on it. Again, if this is an enhanced image that could be added, I want to be completely transparent about that. But yeah, that is the scene. So let's talk now about the investigation phase and the aftermath that came from this. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. If you've shopped online, Task Force, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button that you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? Well, that is Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands just getting started. Shopify gives you a leg up from day one with hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand style and forget about having to code it all. Tackle all those important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments and analytics and more. Spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools to find and keep new customers. And that iconic purple Shop Pay button that's used by millions of businesses around the world, well, that's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Your customers already love it. I've used Shopify in the past, and I've really enjoyed just how seamless it is to get your brand's identity firmly established on the website. It makes everything that you sell so easy and professional, and the website experience and building that shop is actually quite easy and fun to do. I love to tinker on the back end. If you want to see less carts being abandoned, it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/redweb. Go to shopify.com/redweb, shopify.com/redweb. So, of course, immediately following the detonation, the president of the New York Stock Exchange paused all trading to limit panic. It seems like a small thing, but it's right outside their doors. It's kind of common sense. Like, let's not encourage more people to do business and commerce while this is happening right outside. But
Right. I'm also eager to see if this was a special day during the stock exchange. Was anything, going public on the market, etc. You know what I mean? Like, are there any stocks that benefited from this or didn't benefit from this? Like, I feel like those things have to come into play.
I will say, on a cursory glance, we are without our Christian today, our guy in the chair.
We are.
But I don't believe, and this is again very cursory as I'm juggling a few things here, spinning the plates as it were, I don't believe that this day was particularly significant, but also part of that is we know that we don't know what the motive is. That there are a few suspects, and we'll talk about it, but again, it maintains a high level of theory and speculation. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. Like you almost wish that there was something harder to grasp into,
Right?
Because it would make more sense. But yeah. So the Justice Department's Bureau of Investigation, the BOI, which would later become the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, they were initially hesitant to label this an act of terrorism. It seemed that there was no clear target in the explosion, which puzzled investigators, and I think that does play into your question, Fredo, that there wasn't a really clear, it wasn't a particular holiday. There wasn't a particular VIP, so to speak, on scene or in these buildings. And the Assay office held no public figures. The JP Morgan Bank held mostly bank clerks and brokers, so regular people doing their financial jobs. By 3:30 p.m. that afternoon, just about 3.5 hours later, the New York Stock Exchange's board of directors had met, and they decided, however you want to feel about this, that they would resume business the next day. Part of it is I'm imagining, to mitigate panic and not keep things shut down 2 days in a row.
Right.
But I don't know. Money never sleeps, as they cynically say.
Yeah, when there's money to be made, that's the thing. It's where it's like, sure, you want time off, or you want to give people the ability to sit with their emotions and all that, but if given the option, or it's like, look, you might be emotionally traumatized right now, but you could make a good amount of money today, would you want to go back in? A lot of people would fold.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, especially in this 105 years later hustle culture that we're all fully steeped in.
Yep.
But man, I can't even possibly fathom
I know
the emotional trauma that one goes through and then needs to button up the next day and head to work, Terrible. So overnight, this is where things get really frustrating. And of course, when you have true crime, you have frustrations. Cleaning crews arrived to clean the scene, thus destroying any possible evidence that may have been overlooked by the police that afternoon. Of course, they were on the scene, picking up shrapnel, picking up anything they could, trying to reverse engineer, obviously, this explosion, where it came from, how it was put together, etc. But, there could have been, in theory, clues left behind that would help determine who and when and where and why. But we'll never know.
Yeah, because they wanted to move things so fast. So you're just really banking on okay, everything gets done. And the thing is, it's on public street, busy street. I don't know. It's already a circus.
Yeah.
It's they want to move quick, but also you gotta take your time. And I mean, how many times do you review something or look at something, then leave, come back with a fresh set of eyes, and then you have a different perspective or take on it. Notice something new, etc. Yeah, not here.
Yeah, right. And you can't. They cleaned it up. And part of that's probably because, well, we got business to attend to tomorrow. So if you could just get that horse up off my street.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
But true. I mean, that's what it is, right? There's there's people there that's hey, how can we get this moving? What's the fastest way to clean this up and get going?
When you think about Huck Johnson, the chief financial officer of the conglomerate Incorporated Investigators.
Honestly, a perfect name to fit here for some reason.
always gotta drop a Huck. Yeah, he's sitting there cold-hearted going, listen, this is just inconvenience, This just needs to be over with. People can move on, right? Which is such a distant way to look at it, but you're totally right. There's absolutely, I imagine, someone somewhere pushing the gears along, just doesn't care. Now, it is unclear as far as why anyone would have had access to this space. Yes, business is occurring maybe the next day, but why the police hadn't blocked it off is interesting. If it was determined to be a crime scene, why was it maybe not cordoned off or maybe mishandled? That is completely unknown. Now, here's where things are pretty interesting. We do actually have a police sketch of the driver. I believe this was generated several months later. This would have been probably in the springtime of 1921 when I looked up the origin of this photo. But it's based on what witnesses said the driver looked like. And it's not a very vivid description. They said it was a nondescript man who parked and then fled down the street. Fredo, I have that image for you here if you want to take a look at it. But this is based on the description that witnesses gave at the time.
He looks, I don't know, Italian maybe?
Interesting. Really? Keep it in your mind. Pin that. Your X gene's getting so strong. I'm so proud of you.
I don't know. It just looked like an Italian guy. He's got a little stash up top right here.
Yeah. I think that might be doing it. A little Italian stash.
I mean, the nose and some of the facial features. He's got kind of like an oval face. I would say kind of like a thicker chin and then some filled in cheekbones.
Mm-hmm.
The eyes are interestingly drawn.
Yeah.
They're drawn very large proportion.
That's how I used to draw in 3rd grade. It's how I draw now too, but it's how I also used to draw.
Right.
But
just still
it's
draw
got
like a much. I mean, if you drew this at 3rd grade, congratulations.
No, mostly the eye shape.
Oh, just the eyes.
Big.
Yeah,
kind
where
of
it's just like
eyeball-shaped eyeball.
Yeah. It's just 2 half circles.
What is that kind of hat called? Like a newsy hat almost.
You're right. I don't know what it's called, but yes. It looks like he'd be handing you newspapers while you're walking down the street.
Yeah.
But very kind of also kind of just generic looking person, to be honest. There's no accentuated features, I would say, or anything that's that really stands out.
And I think what's interesting is that, the only thing that really made this person seemingly stand out, if you look at the photos that we talked about before, is the hat and the clothing. It's not like that of the bank clerks, the vendors, and the other individuals that were commonly in that area. I mean, I look at the photos that I showed you, and yes, that's kind of the aftermath, but on the whole, you're seeing a lot of people wearing similar outfits. Yes, many of these are policemen, but if you look further back, you're seeing a lot of suits, bowler hats. The attire of the day was much more focused and honed in than it is now, where you see all different shapes, sizes, colors, and silhouettes, they call them, in fashion.
Yeah, he doesn't look as spruced up as everybody else that would be in that area.
So maybe that's why he stood out and how the description's maintained. But either way, there was a witness that told the Washington Post they saw a man exit this carriage. This individual seemed to be about in their mid-40s, wearing brown overalls, which again would be quite different than a lot of the suits and wool that were worn commonly around this area. And many of the deceased were identified as you would expect, bank clerks, vendors, street workers. And so they knew that whoever this driver was that they saw was not among the deceased, and so therefore likely got away and was still at large. What's interesting is this is where the investigation does the best it can to get tangible. And the horse drawing the carriage had seemingly just gotten new horseshoes, showing very little wear and tear on the stone streets, but investigators were unable to trace them back to a specific stable. I really do like this piece, even if it goes cold. They looked at the horseshoes, and the blacksmith who made them seemingly, puts either their brand or their stamp on it in some way to signify that it's their company, their name, what have you. And they did get in contact with that blacksmith who made the horseshoe. But again, that trail went cold because he wasn't really able to provide any helpful information.
Right.
And I wonder if that's because he sells to a middleman, if he doesn't really know who he vendors to. If he sells, I sell exclusively to Huck's shoes, then
right. Yep.
They know to go back to Huck Johnson, then he's got the shoes.
Then Huck Johnson, Shoe Incorporated, that's the person to go to. But I mean, right, that's a good place to go because, the horseshoe is going to be mostly probably intact.
Yeah, probably.
And so you can figure out the branding and stuff like that. Oh, man. Did that person own the horse? Did they rent the horse?
Yeah, and is there a way to identify that horse?
Right.
Or even the carriage, And I imagine they chased it all down.
Dang.
Yeah. That, or maybe they didn't. I don't know. At a certain point, like I said earlier, the wagon was in pieces. And if you want to take a look, Getty's Images actually has a slew of images. I sourced mine mostly from FBI and other, like, in History Channel and things, but there are so many photos of this in a whole scene, like mostly obviously after, but like from all the pieces gathered to, basically all the evidence, the scene, the onlookers and everything. But at first then, this is where the police and investigators' instincts went. They thought, well, maybe this was an accident. Maybe because of just how gruesome it was and how high population it was without any obvious motive, that maybe it was an accident. So they started reaching out to companies that carried explosives for whatever purpose they might need them for. They're saying, hey, did any dynamite go missing that you're expecting? Did any shipment that you were making not make it to where it was supposed to go, what have you? And it seemingly seems that all of those leads themselves also went cold.
Yeah, I don't know if it would necessarily be an accident. The person would have perished with the explosion, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not like just coincidentally went down the street for a sandwich and then that,
Right.
or they, you know what I mean? Or would have shown up afterwards and like, oh my goodness, can't believe this happened, etc. Not necessarily like flee the scene.
It's a good point.
Never to be seen again.
Right.
Weird, how they, talk to different dynamite companies, do your due diligence, but weird kind of like theory to be like, well, maybe it was an accident.
I'm sure they're not ruling anything out.
No, for sure.
At this point.
Don't rule anything out, but still.
Yeah. So, leave no stone unturned. But yeah, does it feel like an accident initially? I think your instincts are right on.
Right.
Yeah. So the damage done to the surrounding structures was pretty interesting, devastating, should I say. And it totaled about $2 million at the time worth of damage, which would, if you account for inflation alone, be about $32 million today.
Oh.
Yeah, no small sum.
No, not at all.
And what's interesting is I'm definitely jumping the gun here.
Okay.
There is a photo that I was going to have in the conclusion. I kind of want to talk about it now. This last image I have for you. This shows, to this day, there is damage from that explosion on some of the surrounding facades to these buildings, where it was just simply never repaired. You have like stone corners and like I said, concrete facades to these buildings that, yeah, the structure's still fine, but otherwise shrapnel blew out and chipped away. So take a look at one of the spots where this has been documented still.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That'll crack a skull.
Right. That shows you just how brutal this shrapnel would have been.
That's the thing too, is the added shrapnel, I think, would cause maximum damage. We were talking about it earlier, because
Yeah.
it didn't necessarily break into tiny little pieces. Like, they were sizable chunks that were essentially like blunt objects being hurled at high speed towards civilians.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that
Yeah.
giant crack in the wall too. Aside,
Yeah.
bunch of like big dents. That's gonna crack a bone for sure.
Totally. I don't know what the tensile strength of concrete is to a bone, but I have to imagine if there is a chunk of concrete pulled from the corner, it looks like it's almost down to like the metal rebar underneath, perhaps. It's the size of someone's hand, and it looks to be at least an inch, maybe 2 inches deep at the deepest point. And then around that, as you're seeing, Fredo, there's like maybe inch diameter divots all around it. So it really shows the essentially shotgun blast worth of shrapnel. And when it comes to explosions, I'm no expert at all, but I believe a lot of the damage, and if it's like a missile or a large scale explosion, a lot of the damage does come from shockwave. But in the case of like a grenade, or in this case, 100 pounds of dynamite, the shockwave is definitely damaging, but really a lot, if not most of the damage, comes from the shrapnel itself. And so, yeah, this is just a morbid reminder still there on Wall Street of what happened that day.
Jesus.
And while the investigators had some suspects on their list, they were leaving no stone unturned. A lot of these things went cold. Ultimately, no group ever claimed responsibility for this attack. It's not uncommon. We've seen it both ways. Sometimes people raise their hand and you have 50 people saying, I did it. And then sometimes it's just mums. You got nobody coming forward and they disappear. And as you know, this case remains unsolved to this day.
Yep.
So as we dive into these suspects, do you have any things that are tickling your brain, questions you have, things that you want to know about, or Just any gut checks before we dive in?
I mean, it was such a just in and out, low touch kind of job. I don't know, like, what can you really extrapolate from it, right? Do you get some shred of a piece of evidence that leads into something like the horseshoe? But I mean, come on,
Yeah, man.
there's no note, no nothing. Like,
How great would that have been, though?
that would have been
If the horseshoe turned into
right.
something material, I would have been like, some brilliant investigation work, make a movie out of this to commend whoever did that or connected these dots. But
Would have been great, but
yeah.
no.
So as we dive in, we have one very specific suspect and then a mysterious group, and then followed up with a known group with one specific name within that, which kind of merges the two genres here. Now, this first person I want to talk about, I'm going to be a bit coy for a second because it really, at least for a day, raised a lot of intrigue. And the timing of it all is what really made people raise an eyebrow. But it reads so much like a couple of cold cases we've covered before, especially from the 1900s. So I'll talk more about it. I'll get very, very detailed, but it sounds like a mysterious person who few people saw, who stayed at a hotel and didn't pay, and then disappeared, leaving only a few odds and ends.
Okay.
They left in their room some gloves, a handkerchief with an embroidered E on it, a spool of dental floss, a tennis racket with a few strings broken, a rainproof case, and then 2 raincoats, one of which had some train timetables on them or within their pockets. And then on one of those had various names kind of scribbled onto it. And so you see now how this sounds so quintessential 1900s cold case.
Yeah.
But because someone was willing to say something and connect a dot, we know so much more about this individual. So, introducing suspect number 1, police suspected a man named Edwin Fisher could be the bomber, especially after he sent postcards to his friends telling them to leave the city before September 16th. So this is where I want to reference back to the front page of the New York Times on September 17th. They reported on this very story. So I'm reading a newspaper from 105 years ago, which was pretty wild. And within this, there's some details, and it outlines that one of these postcards was sent to a man named George W. Ketchledge, and it warned him to stay away from Wall Street on September 15th. This postcard, we actually know what it says. I can't find a scan of it or an upload of it, but we do know, thanks to New York Times, what it said. It was mailed from somebody in Toronto, Ontario on September 6th, and it said this, quote, "Greetings. Get out of Wall Street as soon as the gong strikes 3 o'clock on Wednesday the 15th. Good luck, E.D." Now, another one of these was sent to the Chief of French High Commission, Lieutenant Arnaud. Now, both warnings were very specific and referenced an impending financial district attack, and it even mentioned specifically that 4 millionaires would be killed. And from my research, I don't believe that that was true. Now, thankfully, Ketchledge knew this individual, right? It seems that these were all colleagues of one another at some point in time, and so Ketchledge could have gone silent and this would have been very mysterious, but he divulged that ED was Edwin Fisher, and that's where the police got their suspicions. So Edwin Fisher was a lawyer, a champion tennis player, and a former employee of the French High Commission, which these 2 other men were as well, which is why he's mailing them some postcards. Now, it's unclear if Fisher would have had any motive to commit this bombing, and lacking a motive, as you know, is not really enough to clear a suspect, but there are a few other clues that nudge the police away from Fisher. So let's outline those. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Quince. One night with Quince's European linen and you'll finally understand the hype. The difference is immediate and the feel is beyond luxurious. These sheets are light, breathable, and super soft with that perfectly lived-in vibe. Woven from 100% European flax linen, they have that heirloom quality and get softer with each wash. And the same goes for their ultra plush duvets, quilts, pillows, and shams as well. Quince has everything you need to level up your bed. The best part? Like Quince's clothing, their bedding is half the cost of similar brands. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I have a duvet from Quince, and I have to tell you, it is the softest, best feeling duvet I've had. It is so breathable. I live in Texas, and I'm so used to a comforter, but I boil in this heat, and so I need the weight of a comforter, but the breathability of a Quince. And so that's why I'm out here in Texas, still with a comforter on myself, because Quince, it's light. It feels like magic. No, truly though, I really enjoy Quince and a lot of the fabrics that they use because it feels really nice. My wife loves the softness and I love the breathability. I'm a hot sleeper. Let your bed match the season with cool, relaxed bedding from Quince. Go to quince.com/redweb for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/redweb to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by BetterHelp. Workplace stress is now one of the top causes of declining mental health, with 61% of the global workforce experiencing higher than normal levels of stress. To battle stress, most can't just wave goodbye to work, but you can start small with a focus on well-being. And therapy is a great first step towards that. The one thing I really appreciate about BetterHelp is the accessibility and the ease with which you can find the right person. It is a great starting point, I find in my experience, to finding the right person for you in therapy, which is essential. With over 35,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. It's convenient too. You can join a session with a therapist at the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Task Force members get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's betterhelp.com/redweb. Both of the men Fisher contacted worked on Broadway. This would be nearly half a mile away, or 0.8 kilometers. So this would indicate that Fisher thought the explosion would have been so large as to put them in harm's way. And by very rough estimations, again, not an explosives expert, and I also don't know how explosives would interact with the buildings in 1920s New York, but to reach half a mile away, it would at least have to be 10 to maybe 20 times the mass of the 100 pounds of TNT or dynamite that was there.
Right. And I mean, I'm talking about you got to work your way through chunks of building and debris between the walls of that building, people between the walls. Like, that's just so far away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
you never know, right?
You never know, right?
If they're close enough, maybe they're meeting someone down there or whatnot. The postcards being sent, warning them about the day. Like, even then, it's like less coincidence. Why are you warning someone that day not to be,
Yeah. Now, it is interesting because the warning came for September 15th at 3 o'clock.
Oh, right.
We know that the explosion happened on September 15th at noon, almost right on the dot. And so there are a few things not aligning. Now, sure, plannings can change. You can also not be a bomb expert and still say, like, I'm going to set off a bomb, but I don't know what the yield will be. So he's not out of the woods yet, but we're going to get there because we're going to dismantle this one piece at a time. Another piece. Fisher was still in Canada at the time of the bombing. Again, I'm still thinking, okay, well, maybe he could coordinate this with somebody. Doesn't mean that it couldn't still be him at the helm, right?
Yeah.
So police then said, okay, there's a few inconsistencies, but let's talk to him. And when they questioned Fisher, he claimed that he had received the information through the air. And I'm not talking radio. He's indicating psychically. And so this is where, all
right, this is getting unhinged.
It gets a little out of hand, right? This is where it was discovered that actually, okay, he had a habit of issuing these warnings. And it appears that he has a history of making dire predictions that never come true. And it just so happens that this one looks credible because it happened to land around the time of an actual explosion.
Right. Okay, so then, yeah, there you go. Now it's just like, one of these people are like, if something's going to happen on this day, right? Kind of like vague-ish.
Yes.
Not necessarily like saying what will happen, but something will happen. Yeah.
It's very suspicious, but I don't want to, I wanted to go through this as the police at the time would have gone through this. I want to be very careful here as to not vilify Edwin Fisher for his claims, because despite the coincidence, police ultimately found Fisher had no involvement with the bombing, and ultimately, he had been admitted then to Amityville Asylum. And so, again, with all due respect, I don't know what Mr. Fisher is facing or dealing with, and so it is a very sensitive topic, and it doesn't stop him from being a suspect because of the mysterious timing, because of just the coincidence of it all. But when you look back, the police were able to dismantle all of these things, looking at some of the inconsistencies and say, okay, for sure, we believe that Fisher is not a part of this, but because of the pattern of issuing these warnings, most of which never happening, most of this seemingly made up in his own head, we know now, okay, he was facing something with a mental illness, and that rests Fisher's case. But our suspects don't stop there. Prior to the explosion, a letter carrier actually found 4 flyers. Now, some reports do say that there were 5 flyers, but either way, they were all found in the same post office box within that Wall Street area. And so this letter carrier can't help but feel that there is some level of association between what happened that day and these flyers. And I looked really hard. I found a facsimile of what these flyers might have looked like.
Oh.
I can't for sure find if this is what they did look like, and so I don't have an image to provide you, but I do have what they said. I believe the New York Times article actually quoted them, and it said this, quote, "Remember, we will not tolerate any longer. Free the political prisoners, or it will be sure death for all of you." And at the bottom of the letter it read, quote, "American anarchist fighters," end quote. Now, this letter was printed in red ink on white paper. This helped the BOI determine that the bombing was indeed not accidental, honed in a little bit there, but instead it was an intentional attack. The American anarchist fighters were not a known group, and it appears when looking back on the annals of history that this is the only time this specific group has ever been mentioned. And so we don't know now, is this someone... Again, if these were found before the explosion took place, it seems that someone premeditated this, put these there as a threat, a vague nod maybe to who they are, but it wasn't an actual group with this actual name.
Right. Maybe they were trying to use the group as like a decoy?
Well, if the group doesn't exist is
True.
what I'm kind of indicating, that it's totally possible that I say Huck's Bad Boys, is my group. And like I put that on a flyer, and I put within that flyer maybe some of the actual weight and meaning behind what I'm doing or what I think, but I put a fake name on it and send it. And so Huck's Bad Boys are never mentioned again.
Right.
So it does feel like there's some relation to something. And this is when investigators actually noticed that, hey, maybe these letters are similar to another bombing incident back in June of 1919.
Oh.
A little over a year ago, yeah. So the 1919 attacks were believed to be committed by a group called the Gallianistas. So Gallianisti is the term used to define followers of the Italian insurrectionary anarchist Luigi Galliani. So in the 1919 attacks, the group was able to detonate 9 bombs in 8 different cities across the Northeast. Now, these were targeting different government officials who supported anti-sedition laws and anti-immigrant policies, as well as judges who sent anarchists to prison. So it seemed that these attacks were much more specifically motivated to people involved with something that they felt very passionate about,
Right.
or some sort of retribution, some sort of revenge plot. Now, each of these bombs was accompanied by several copies of the same letter. Again, this is what felt very similar to this flyer. Now, the last line of each of these read this, quote, "There will have to be bloodshed. We will not dodge. There will have to be murder. We will kill, because it is necessary. There will have to be destruction. We will destroy to rid the world of your tyrannical institutions," end quote. Now again, because of the similarities in cases, the BOI focused its investigation efforts on the Gallianists. One in particular actually stood out to them. Mario Buda, who was an associate of 2 imprisoned Italian anarchists. These individuals were arrested both in Massachusetts, so we're not too far from New York City. We're still in the Northeast, and so we're still kind of in that area. And some historians believe that Buddha was the one to plant the bomb in an act of revenge. They further theorize that this was intended to harm as many people as possible, hence choosing the crowded location, but it does seem to go against the grain of these other bombs, which were more specific attacks, judges, officials, revenge tactics to people involved. And so it did seem like a separate and different tactic to get attention, and it also didn't carry the same weight of messaging. That's what stands out to me, at least.
Yeah. I don't know. They're too dissimilar in a lot of ways, right? This is like more of a statement. It's targeted. It's more than one person. This is like someone had a personal vendetta, didn't quite, make that public at all, and then just like set the thing off and then like forget it, right? Like peeled away. That was it.
It does feel that way. I mean, there is an interesting string here where the flyer, again, from a group that is kind of made up here, or at least doesn't exist, it says, "We will not tolerate any longer." And it also says, "Free the political prisoners." That does kind of coordinate with this theory of the Gallianisty pretty well, like, especially if you look at the two individuals who were imprisoned there in Massachusetts. But it doesn't have much else to go off of. It's really the only suspect left without just kind of really just going, I don't know, maybe that, maybe this, maybe them. It's the only one with like some sort of material left. And what's interesting too, it does kind of build on this. Mario Buddha was experienced in dynamite and was known to use sash weights in his time bombs, according to his nephew, right? So a little bit hearsay, a little bit he said, she said, but it does build on, okay, we have a little bit more of a motive than nothing. We have a little bit of an MO, but it's, I don't know, right?
The thing is, like, this is what, like a year ago previously, roughly?
Yeah.
It's like, was that information public? Is this someone that was inspired?
Ooh, like a copycat?
Yeah. And then from there, I was like, I have a personal reason, and I'm inspired by this event, and obsessed a little bit. Gotten some details, saw that one of the people had like an MO of like how they did their thing, placed the bombs together, and so essentially copied it.
Yeah, you can never discredit somebody just trying to copycat and hurt people. If there's anything we've learned in nearly 250 episodes, 5 years of talking about true crime, unsolved cases and things, you can never discount somebody just doing something sinister for the sake of it. It's just terrible. But one other piece, though, that people that subscribe to this particular suspect believe is that at the time he was going by a different alias, Mike Boda, and it is unclear if this is what allowed him to evade police, but it does add at least, maybe it's lacking some substance to really connect him to the case. There's some patterns that do match up, and it's the best thing we've got out of nothing else. And so if you're trying to say, okay, well then how'd he get away? The fact that he's operating under an alias does help with that.
Right.
Now, he was reportedly suspected, but it's unclear why he was never officially arrested or brought in for questioning, right? If you're suspecting this guy, especially if there is any relation to prior bombings or any hands-on action of doing these bombings, why not drag this person in, especially if some of the bomb profile has similar characteristics or something? But ultimately, Buddha used his real name to secure a passport and returned to Italy, and this whole trail went cold. So ultimately, as we close out, this dedicated investigation lasted over 3 years. Nothing ever really came of it. No one was ever convicted of the bombing. We don't really know why this bombing happened, and there is no memorial to honor the lives lost that day. But as I mentioned, and I want to reference that image one more time, this incident and remnants of it can still be seen on the buildings themselves, and like I said, have not been fully repaired, so you can see that damage if you were in New York City this day. And this attack would be the deadliest terrorist attack on U.S. soil for the next 75 years.
Wow.
Until the Oklahoma City bombing, which happened in 1995. But again, this has been the Wall Street explosion of 1920, and incredible that I honestly... It's not like I'm not omniscient out here, but for somebody who finds morbidly fascinating the unknown, true crime, unsolved cases of all sizes and shapes, I can't believe that something like this that happened in a downtown area that
Right.
was so deadly and was the deadliest for 75 years just hasn't trickled across my table or anything,
Right.
man.
Yeah, something so massive. But that just goes to show you there's so many things that happen on a yearly, monthly, daily basis. It's just so much to cover. And that's why we're, almost 250 episodes in.
Yeah.
And there's still so much more to cover because it's just, there's so much. There's a lot. And then you get into the things that are like, is it made up? Is it not made up? Right? Aliens, cryptids, etc. Like, it's a vast world out there.
Absolutely. Well, as we come to an end on the 1920 Wall Street bombing task force, as always, I want to thank you guys so much for supporting us directly at redwebpod.com. We have lots of goodies and exclusives. You can get this podcast ad-free. You get Movie Club up to twice a month. We have basically weekly content at this point, Fredo, between like Break Room, Movie Club, our gameplay series. We put out research outlines. Again, this podcast ad-free. We have store discounts, all sorts of goodies, and it keeps the show going. And yeah, and we're trying to get those stretch goals crossed off our list, try to get some pilots and some new shows spun off. You're still going to have Red Web for the long haul, but we want to try some other things that you guys might enjoy as well. And as we come to a close, Task Force member Bradley French, thank you for being the newest Task Force member as of about
welcome.
6 hours ago. Yeah. And then, of course, Fredo, get your pen and paper out, or maybe a quill and parchment. I don't know what you operate
You
with.
know what I mean? Then I could burn it later. I could burn the names out.
We have Squonk members to shout out this week. We got Broman, Brett O'Mura, and G, just to name a few. Thank you all so much. And hey, if you watch the video version of this podcast, now that it's kind of getting its little legs out there, now that we're on Spotify with it too, you might see the names go scrolling across the screen now. So if you want to see your name at the end of every episode, come join, be an elite member, a buff mind, or a squonk, and again, support the show. But with that said, Fredo, I'll see you. Be sipping out of your sippy cup, and I'll see you next week for yet another mystery. Cheers.